The Vanishing Family, a terrifying vacation in the mountains. On a foggy autumn morning, Murat, Zeynep, and their children Selin and Amir set out to seek solace in an old cabin tucked away in a forgotten corner of the mountains, far from the bustling city. As they drove along winding roads where light filtered through towering peaks, a sense of hope stirred in their tired hearts. This vacation promised a welcome escape from urban chaos. Yet that very day, hidden secrets within nature's silence were about to herald the beginning of a dark, inescapable game. Upon arriving, the cabin's crumbling walls, shattered windows, and the ever-present mist whispered that this was a place abandoned by time. On the first evening, as Murat sat near the flickering fire, the cold wind howling through the nearby forest, the rustling of leaves, and distant, indiscernible cries sent an uneasy shiver down his spine. Zeynep tried to reassure herself and the children by murmuring, "Perhaps these are just echoes of the old local legends," yet the apprehension in Selin's eyes as she peered out the window hinted at something far more sinister. The next morning, under a gray sky that seemed to promise rain, the family ventured around the cabin. Along the way, they discovered deep, muddy tracks on the ground and strange symbols etched into tree bark as if someone had hurriedly passed by. Murat attempted to dismiss them with, "Maybe these are just the marks of local hunters," but the worry etched on his children's faces betrayed that this was no ordinary occurrence. The chill in the air and the soft, unsettling whispers emerging from the forest depths foretold that their vacation would be anything but peaceful. As dusk fell, darkness draped itself over the cabin like a heavy curtain. Later that night, even as the rain diminished to a mere drizzle, the wind intensified, howling through the decaying wooden walls and replacing the cozy interior with an indescribable tension. Then, without warning, Zeynep's strangled screams tore through the silence. Panic-stricken sounds emanated from Selin's room, igniting the first sparks of a living nightmare. Rushing to the door, Murat discovered Selin's bed in disarray and her window left ominously ajar. The room had been abandoned in an instant, as if Selin had simply vanished without a trace. With their hearts pounding, the family burst out into the storm. The tempest showed no mercy as they desperately followed the fading tracks into the dark forest. Amir, who had been gazing out a window, seemed to disappear in the blink of an eye, leaving his family to search amid only the relentless patter of raindrops. Every step deepened their dread as shadowy figures emerged from the mist and unseen, cold eyes peered between the trees. Zeynep, pointing at fresh muddy footprints, whispered, "It's as if someone has been here," yet the tracks melted into the unknown, swallowed by the heart of the forest. Time passed, and soon only Murat and Zeynep remained. With each step, hope ebbed away, replaced by the crushing reality of their missing children. When they finally returned to the cabin, despair met them at the door, left slightly ajar, with evidence of chaos and panic scattered throughout the rooms. As they searched every corner, a faint, ghostly whisper mingled with the forest's silence, repeatedly asking, "Where are they?" In those final moments of that dreadful night, every murmur and every quickened heartbeat seemed to etch deep marks of terror into the very walls of the cabin. The following day, though the storm had subsided, a thick mist draped the mountains like a shroud concealing all truths and secrets. When rescue teams eventually arrived, the earth itself had erased any trace of that horrifying disappearance. Only Murat and Zeynep's desperate questions echoed unanswered through the dark forest. The local residents, having pursued this mystery for years, were left with nothing, no clues, no rational explanation. It was as if nature had locked away the events in its memory, forever concealing the truth. From that day forward, the tale of the Vanishing Family, a terrifying vacation in the mountains, became a legend whispered among the silent peaks. Locals, traversing those foggy heights, recalled the ghostly remnants of the missing family. Every gust of wind and every raindrop seemed to resurrect the brutal reality of that fateful vacation. Perhaps, deep within those mountains, somewhere, traces of the family still lingered, or maybe the events were the very embodiment of humanity's deepest fears and nature's relentless, unsolvable mysteries. Who can say for sure? But the tension, the horror, and the inexplicable disappearance left an indelible mark on all who dared to remember. Each night, as the wind rustled through the trees and the forest fell silent, the echo of lost footsteps and whispered voices sent chills down the spines of any who listened, ensuring that the memory of that terrifying vacation would forever remain an enigma, suspended between reality and nightmare. Trapped in room 306, the family's nightmare getaway. On a cold autumn night, Emre, Melis, and their two young children arrived at an old hotel just outside town, brimming with excitement for their family vacation. They checked into room 306, And at first, the creaking wooden furniture and the faded portraits on the walls whispered only a sense of nostalgic charm. However, as the night wore on, the silence began to sow seeds of unease. The initial hours passed in a calm haze of fatigue and holiday relaxation. Suddenly, a storm roared through the hotel's corridors, gusts of wind battered the windows, and the relentless patter of rain filled the air. Gradually, the room turned colder and more oppressive. Near midnight, the lights flickered out. Darkness fell, accompanied by a chilling sense of despair, pounding on the door, and vague, unsettling noises from outside, all pushing the family to the brink of a living nightmare. Emery discovered that the door was inexplicably locked and, in a panic, tried every method to open it. Neither his keys nor his force could yield any escape. Meanwhile, Melis, exploring a neglected corner of the room, uncovered old files containing eerie, ominous notes from previous guests. Every word hinted at the room's mysterious past, intensifying the terror reflected in the trembling hands and frightened eyes of the children, as if time itself had slowed to a crawl. The room had transformed from a sanctuary into a claustrophobic prison. Every creak, every whisper of the wind, and the relentless fury of the storm outside sounded like dire warnings echoing in their hearts. Driven by a fierce instinct to protect his family, Emery inspected every inch of the room, yet when he looked out the windows, all he saw was a dark void and the distant echo of rainfall. Phones lost signal, mobile networks fell silent, and even the radio ceased to work, as if the hotel had severed all lines of communication for the night. As time marched on like a merciless enemy, the family struggled against the unknown that each passing second brought. While Melis's trembling hands turned the yellow pages of the documents, Emery caught sight of a moving shadow in the gap behind the door. Unable to discern whether it was real or a figment of his imagination, that fleeting silhouette only deepened the terror gripping the family. The silent screams in the children's eyes and their whispered glances only added to the oppressive atmosphere of the room. In the late hours of the night, even as a glimmer of hope began to surface like the first hints of dawn, the bittersweet unease left deep, indelible scars on their hearts. When the first light of day finally broke, the horrors of the night had transformed room 306 into a nightmare that the family would never forget. Trapped between despair and fear, they realized that even the safest haven could unexpectedly turn into the source of their deepest terror. As the sun slowly ascended, the door remained locked, and distant footsteps echoed down the corridor, hinting at a hope that seemed to float toward the unknown. The family understood that every vacation leaves behind memories, but this one, etched by a night of sheer terror, would leave an indelible mark on their souls. Silent Town, the vacation that turned into a horror story. It all began one fateful morning when three close friends, Emily, David, and Ryan, set out to escape the weariness of city life in search of a peaceful getaway. Their destination was Silent Town, a nearly forgotten place on maps, a relic of bygone eras. From the outside, the town exuded a calm, nostalgic charm with its narrow stone streets, ancient buildings, and a light mist that veiled everything. Yet beneath that tranquil facade, a hidden darkness lurked. Upon their arrival, they were greeted by an elderly man whose face bore the deep fatigue of years and a mysterious, knowing smile that hinted at the secrets buried in the town's past. The locals spoke little, as if each was guarding painful memories and hidden sorrows. That first night, as the moonlight streamed through the windows and illuminated the gnarled branches of an old oak in the garden, the air became heavy with the murmurs of forgotten grief. The silence outside was a forewarning of the unease growing within them. The next morning, with a blend of curiosity and apprehension, they ventured into the winding alleys of the town. Every step along the faded sidewalks, every crack in the ancient walls, and every whisper of the wind seemed to narrate a story of lost lives and unspoken tragedies. As the breeze rustled through the trees, it carried with it an eerie melody, a subtle warning that something was amiss. While exploring, Emily noticed faded symbols carved into the walls, marks that spoke of loss, tragedy, and lingering sorrow. In the afternoon, Ryan wandered into the town's modest library and stumbled upon an old newspaper archive. The dusty pages chronicled mysterious disappearances and unexplained deaths from years past, a series of events that defied logical explanation. As they discussed the grim accounts, the sound of measured footsteps from outside seemed to follow them, as though an unseen presence was observing their every move. David, clinging to logic, sought rational explanations, while Emily and Ryan felt a deep, instinctive dread that something far more sinister was at work. As dusk fell, they decided to explore the forest on the outskirts of town. The forest, cloaked in mist and filled with the rustle of leaves under a chilling wind, appeared to murmur ancient laments. Deep among the trees, near a moss-covered bench adorned with mysterious carvings, Emily felt that this place had once witnessed sorrowful rituals. In that moment, the silence of the forest became almost tangible, as if haunted by memories of grief, and every step was shadowed by an unseen presence. Their hearts pounded in unison with the foreboding sensation that they were now alone. Later that night, upon returning to their lodging, inexplicable sounds began to echo within the house. Soft clicks in the corridors and faint whispers behind the walls transformed the home into something that seemed to breathe its own dark history. While David tried to offer logical explanations, Ryan gathered his courage and ventured into the creaking, dusty basement. As he descended the narrow stairs, lined with faded portraits whose eyes seemed to narrate untold stories, one portrait stood out, a woman with a gentle smile shadowed by profound sorrow, as if forever burdened by a tragic past. In the oppressive stillness of the basement, the faint murmurs among forgotten relics resembled the lament of lost souls. Suddenly, a distant, blood-curdling cry shattered the silence, freezing the blood in their veins. When their eyes met, the unspoken realization dawned: this sound was a harbinger, a summons to confront the dark secrets that lay hidden within Silent Town. Even as David clung desperately to rationality, Emily and Ryan's hearts knew that the silence concealed something terribly real. The following morning, as they roamed the empty streets, an elderly local quietly murmured, "There are places from which one cannot escape." Those words echoed in their minds. The residents' solemn expressions and guarded demeanors revealed that each carried the weight of a painful history. It soon became evident that Silent Town was not merely a peaceful refuge but a repository of deep wounds and forgotten tragedies. With the sunset, driven by a blend of dread and determination, the trio approached the old town hall. Although the heavy wooden doors were locked, a dim light seeped through the dusty windows, hinting at a lingering presence within. Inside, the air was thick with the dust of decades, and the walls were adorned with faded photographs that captured faces both joyful and sorrowful. Behind one such photograph was a handwritten note: "Silence is the deepest echo of pain." The words struck them as though the building itself was a monument to a tormented past. As night deepened, the unsettling sounds both inside and outside grew louder. While rain pattered relentlessly against the windows, the whispers of the past seeped into every shadowed corner. Overwhelmed by the mounting horror, the friends resolved that they could no longer remain. Yet, as they stepped out into the shrouded streets, it seemed as though Silent Town itself refused to let them go. The pathways twisted unnaturally, and even their mobile phones fell silent, while unseen silhouettes danced in the periphery and distant footsteps pursued them relentlessly. Ryan's trembling whisper, "We must leave," was met with the unspoken terror mirrored in Emily's eyes. The silence outside became a harbinger of the town's dark mysteries, each step drawing them further into its cursed embrace. Finally, after a harrowing journey through winding back streets and mist-shrouded lanes, they reached a highway, clinging to the hope of escape. Yet as they glanced in the rearview mirror, the silhouette of Silent Town loomed behind them as if its windows were watching, a final, silent reminder that its grip would never truly be broken. For a fleeting moment, the flashing lights of a police car sparked hope. However, the officer's stern gaze, communicated without words, served as a stark warning: "Do not linger here." Without waiting for an explanation, the trio bolted into their car and sped away. But even as the highway swallowed them, the eerie hum of Silent Town, its rain, its wind, and its haunting silence etched itself into their souls. In the days that followed, attempts to reclaim a sense of normalcy proved futile. The haunting visage of Silent Town, along with the spectral voices of that dreadful night, invaded their dreams and shattered their peace. What began as a quest for solace had transformed into a living nightmare, a tapestry woven from forgotten tragedies, unexplainable horrors, and the relentless echo of pain. With every step they took thereafter, the chilling reminder rang clear: beneath every beauty lies a hidden darkness. Silent Town had become far more than a vacation destination. It was a place where the scars of the past mingled with the present, where the echoes of sorrow and despair had taken root, a relentless curse that would forever haunt their every waking moment. The rental house, a family's vacation that ended in terror. The Iden family, exhausted by the ceaseless pace of modern life and yearning for a peaceful escape, had decided to rent an old house on the outskirts of a small coastal town. From the outside, the house exuded a warm, welcoming charm, yet its time-worn facade belied a shadowed past. Towering pine trees encircled the property, their branches swaying in a gentle breeze that whispered secrets among the rustling, faded leaves, a silent lament of bygone days. In those first few days, the family's evenings were filled with hopeful conversations, serene moments on a balcony overlooking the sea, and an almost hypnotic fascination with the surrounding natural beauty. Yet, gradually, an unseen presence began to stir, as if the house's dark history was eager to reveal its long-forgotten secrets. On the first night, as a cold rain pattered softly against the windows and the wind roamed the deserted streets, the family gathered for dinner. The meal had lost its flavor, and the unease reflected on everyone's face was palpable, a lingering effect of the unexplained murmurs and the faint, irregular tapping echoing from the walls. Although Ahmet dismissed the creaking wooden floorboards beneath his steps as mere tricks of the wind, he couldn't ignore the tremor in Melissa's hands as she clutched her cup. Their daughter, Duro, whispered about hearing soft voices emanating from the dark end of a corridor, while F confided that he felt as if unseen eyes were watching them. Determined to unveil every mystery the house held, the family spent the following day exploring its every corner. Climbing the creaking, dust-covered stairs, they discovered faded portraits and antique relics hanging on the walls, reminders of a happier time, yet laden with the weight of lost years. In a forgotten drawer, Ahmet stumbled upon an old, leather-bound diary. Its yellowed pages told a grim tale of a family who had once called this house home, a narrative of a sudden, inexplicable disappearance, lingering sorrow that haunted every room, and hopes crushed by the relentless march of time. Every written word seemed to echo the silent screams embedded in the very walls. As night deepened and the rain intensified, the wind battered the windows with renewed fury, setting the house's long corridors trembling as if alive. In one of the quietest rooms, Melis noticed shifting shadows behind a wall, fleeting silhouettes of past souls desperate to make themselves known. The faint, eerie whispers coming from the children's rooms only deepened the palpable dread, and with each step the family took, the labyrinthine hallways seemed to murmur secrets of sorrow, drawing them inexorably into the mansion's hidden depths. One evening, while the family sat together in the living room, a sudden, sharp creak resounded from the upper floor, freezing everyone in place. Ahmet's mind raced back to ominous tales he had heard from friends, stories that spoke of tragic events rooted in this very house. With panic mounting, the family resolved to venture upstairs. Each creaking step on the narrow staircase felt like a descent into an unknown nightmare. At the end of a dim corridor, they discovered a small, concealed room behind a dusty door. Inside, faded family portraits, brittle letters, and remnants of sorrowful memories told the silent story of a long-hidden tragedy. In that moment, the frightened glances exchanged among the children were laced not just with fear, but a profound, inexplicable melancholy. By midnight, the terror within the house reached its zenith. Pale moonlight filtered through the windows, casting eerie patterns on the dark corners, while the raging storm outside seemed to resurrect the tortured specters of the past. As the Iden family made a desperate bid to escape, they found the doors inexplicably locked and the windows sealed as if by an unseen force. With phone lines dead and any hope of outside help cut off, the house transformed into an inescapable trap, a modern manifestation of a long-forgotten curse. Every nook and cranny, every shadowed passage, bore the indelible mark of a sinister legacy, its oppressive presence halting their every step. In a final act of desperation, the family discovered a hidden door leading down to the basement. It appeared to be their sole hope for unearthing the secrets that might release them from this nightmare. Yet the basement's cold, damp air and rotting walls only dragged them deeper into a realm of darkness. Under the dim light, ancient symbols and cryptic inscriptions carved into the stone spoke silently of cursed rituals and the tragic events that had long been shrouded in mystery. In that chilling moment, every hope was swallowed by an all-consuming terror. The house was not merely a structure of wood and stone, it was a repository of past agonies, of unhealed wounds and irrevocable loss. As the first light of dawn crept in, there was a fleeting promise that the morning might dispel some of the night's horror. Yet outside, the storm's aftermath painted a bleak, desolate picture, a stark reminder that the nightmares they had endured were not easily erased. When the Iden family finally attempted to flee through the front door, they discovered that some forces are immutable. The terror of that ill-fated vacation had left an indelible scar on their souls. Even years later, when they recalled that harrowing night, their voices trembled with the echo of that unspeakable dread. What had begun as a hopeful escape from the demands of modern life had abruptly morphed into a waking nightmare, an everlasting curse, resonating from the very walls of the old rental house. The Boy on the Beach, a family's encounter with the unknown. The golden light of the setting sun spilled over the endless stretch of sand like a delicate veil. A family, Mother Elif, Father Sem, and their 2 children, Daru and Ken, had ventured to the shore in search of solace, far from the city's clamor, the burdens of routine, and the weight of everyday worries. A gentle breeze carried the salty tang of the sea and a quiet murmur that seemed to awaken long-forgotten memories. Yet that evening, the seemingly tranquil beach was about to be intruded upon by an unforeseen presence. A solitary set of footprints, etched into the soft sand and then quickly washed away by receding waves, caught their attention. As Sem stepped forward with cautious curiosity, his gaze landed on a faint silhouette emerging where water met sand. Near the horizon stood the slender figure of a child, disheveled hair, a pale, ghostly face, and eyes that held a profound, unfathomable loneliness. His presence felt less like a chance occurrence and more like an inevitable summons from the unknown. A shiver ran down Elif's spine as Daru and Ken looked up at their father, their expressions mingling wonder and apprehension. The child moved slowly toward the water's edge, his steps light and almost as if he were defying gravity. Without a word, the family shared a silent understanding. They were drawn by both the allure and the terror of the unknown, uncertain how to approach this lost soul. Hesitantly, Sem advanced, each step heavy with an ominous foreboding that grew with every pace. In the child's eyes, a frozen sorrow lingered, an emotion as boundless and mysterious as the sea itself. After a few weighted moments of silent communion, the child vanished as suddenly as he had appeared, as if carried away by the whispering wind. In that fleeting moment, the mystery behind the spectral figure left a deep, unanswered question in the family's minds. Could this be the echo of a long-forgotten tragedy? That night, the family set up a modest camp along the beach. Under the pale, eerie glow of moonlight, the sea and sand took on an otherworldly aspect, as if they were suspended between reality and the realm of forgotten souls. Amid the murmuring wind, a barely audible child's giggle drifted through the darkness. When Elif awoke and looked out the window, she caught sight of a small silhouette in the distance, like a puppet guided by invisible strings, pausing briefly before dissolving into the shadows. This haunting vision was far more unsettling than their initial encounter. At dawn, as the feeble light of the sun crept over the shore, the family resolved to trace the events of the night and follow the elusive footprints of the lost child. The transient marks led them deep into the most secluded parts of the beach. There, scattered by the wind, they discovered remnants of a child's world, a tattered coat, the imprint of a solitary shoe, silent evidence of not just a missing child, but of pain and sorrow embedded in the sands of time. When local fishermen were approached, they exchanged hesitant glances and murmured cryptic responses. An elderly man, his eyes distant and voice heavy, remarked, "That child, his spirit seems trapped here." His words merged with the ceaseless murmur of the waves, deepening the mystery. As the family wrestled with the boundaries between logic and inexplicable fear, they began to wonder, was this beach the silent witness to a tragedy long past, or merely the product of a collective, weary imagination? In the stillness of the night, as a cold, profound silence descended once more, Daru dreamt of the same forlorn child. The indescribable melancholy in his eyes seemed to carry the weight of an ancient, untold story, a lingering mark of a sin that had never been forgiven. Upon waking, Daru found himself caught between terror and curiosity, as the lines between reality and the supernatural blurred. Each family member bore the invisible scars of that fateful encounter. The beach had transformed from a simple meeting of land and sea into an echo of an unavenged cry, the lingering whisper of an unfinished tale. In the days, weeks, and even months that followed, every brush of the wind, every crash of the waves, rekindled the memory of the child's cold, haunting gaze. The innocence of their previous lives had given way to the stark realization of a mysterious, unyielding truth. For them, the boy on the beach, a family's encounter with the unknown, had evolved from a mere memory into the story of confronting an inexplicable presence that reached deep into the most hidden, dark corners of the human soul. And so, with every return to that desolate shore, with every whispered gust of wind, the echo of the boy's tale, the story of a spirit forever lost yet never entirely forgotten, continued to reverberate, haunting the hearts of those who dared to listen.